Somewhere along the way, you quietly decided this wasn't for you anymore. Maybe it was watching the price of a modest house in your own town climb past what it sold for just a few years back. Maybe it was a builder's quote that landed in your inbox and made you close the laptop and not open it again for a week. Maybe it was just a small voice in the back of your head that said building your own home is a young person's game or a rich person's luxury. And you're neither of those now. I want to sit with you for a minute because that voice is wrong. Not wishful thinking wrong, wrong on the numbers. You are over 50. You've watched home prices run away from you on the evening news and in every listing you scroll past. And somewhere in there, you filed away one of the best ideas you ever had, which was building the home you actually want to live in for the rest of your life. A right-sized place, single level, maybe, no stairs to fight when you're 80, built the way you'd build it, with the light coming in where you want it, and the workshop or the garden you always meant to have. The kind of place that fits the life you actually live now, not the life you had at 35 with a house full of kids. Owned free and clear, with no landlord and no 30-year sentence hanging over the kitchen table. Picture a couple in their 50s walking through a house that's still just wood framing and open sky, imagining where the kitchen goes. That home is still on the table. And over the next 20 minutes, the numbers are going to show you exactly why. Here's the promise I'm going to make good on, and I'll make it plainly so you can hold me to it. You can build the home you'll spend the rest of your life in without handing a contractor an extra $100,000 for the privilege. And the whole thing starts with a single number that almost nobody bothers to teach you: the real cost per square foot. That's the master number. Every scary total you've ever seen, every builder's quote, every listing price, every you'll never afford it, comes back to that one figure and how many square feet you multiply it by. Once you understand where that number really comes from, the fog lifts. A house on a set of blueprints stops being a mystery with a price tag stapled to it and becomes what it always was underneath: a stack of knowable numbers and a short list of manageable steps. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm going to hand you the same math the industry uses and then get out of your way. Before we get into it, let me tell you where these numbers come from, because that matters far more than anything I could claim about myself. They don't come from a guess. They don't come from a sales pitch or somebody's back of the napkin estimate. They come from the same references the professionals quietly use when they're pricing a real job. The National Association of Home Builders runs a construction cost survey, mailing detailed questionnaires to thousands of working builders across the country and reporting back exactly what a new house costs to put up, stage by stage. Estimators lean on databases like RS Means, Marshall & Swift, and the Craftsman National Estimator, the same tools an architect or a general contractor uses to price a job down to the last stud and sheet of drywall. None of this is secret. It's just quiet. And that leads to the reframe that unlocks this entire thing. You're not actually afraid of the work. Not really. You've painted rooms, hired trades, wrangled budgets and projects and people your whole adult life. What you're afraid of is the unknown. The $200 a foot number that quietly turns into $350. The surprise that shows up in month 4 and eats your cushion. That fear is fair. So this video is going to take the mystery out of it, one piece at a time, starting with the real cost of a house. Now you might be thinking, why build at all? Why not just buy something that's already standing and save myself the headache? Fair question, and for some people, that's the right call. But walk through it with me for a second, because this side of 50, the math tilts toward building in a way it doesn't for a 30-year-old. When you buy an existing house, you pay full retail. You pay for the previous owner's kitchen remodel, whether you like it or not. You pay the seller's profit. You pay the agent's commission, and you inherit whatever's hiding behind the walls of a place somebody else built. When you build right size and manage it yourself, you pay for the house and not much else. You pick every finish, and you know exactly what's behind every wall because you watched it go in. A brand new single-level home with your name on the deed and nothing deferred, nothing worn out, nothing you'll be crawling under at 75 to fix. And there's the piece that matters most at this age. Time. You don't have 40 years to write out a mortgage. A right-size build you managed yourself can leave you owning your home outright, or close to it, years earlier than buying that same house at retail ever could. For a younger person, building is one option among many. For you, done right, it's the fastest, honest road to owning the roof over your head, free and clear. So let's build one house together, on paper, in real dollars. I'll walk you through the most recent hard numbers we have, and I'll be straight about what they are. The latest National Association of Home Builders Cost Survey covers homes built in 2024, and it's the highest they've ever recorded. The average new single-family home cost about $162 per square foot just to construct. The average size in that survey was right around 2,600 square feet, and the average construction cost came out to roughly $428,000. Now hold on, because I can already feel your shoulders dropping. $428,000. That's the number that makes people close the laptop and go pour a coffee. But watch what happens when we pull that number apart. Because two things are hiding inside it that change everything for someone in your position. The first is size. That averages a 2,600 square foot house. You don't need a 2,600 square foot house. A right-sized single-level home, the kind you actually want to grow old in with no wasted rooms and nothing you're just paying to heat, might be 1,500 or 1,600 square feet. At that same national rate, you've just taken $100,000 off the total before you've made a single other decision. And right-sizing is the smartest move on the board. Not a compromise. A smaller footprint you'll use every day beats square footage that only shows up on your energy bill. The second thing hiding in that number is where it comes from. That $162 a foot is what a builder spends to put the house up. What a builder charges you is a different number entirely, and the gap between those two is the whole reason we're here. Keep that split in the back of your mind, because we're coming back to it, and it's worth more than anything else in this video. All right, let's open the house up and see where the money actually goes, the way the survey breaks it down. Picture a set of blueprints spread across a plywood table on a fresh job site. First, the site work and the foundation. This is the excavation, the grading, the concrete footings, and the slab or the basement walls going in. On a typical build, site work and foundation together run somewhere around 18% of your construction cost. Watch a crew pouring a concrete foundation on a raw, graded lot. It's the least glamorous money you'll ever spend, and the most important. Nobody posts a photo of a footing, but everything above it is only ever as good as this. Next comes the framing and the envelope. This is the skeleton and the skin. Stacks of lumber going vertical. A framing crew setting roof trusses against the sky. Sheathing, house wrap, windows and exterior doors. Then the siding or brick that keeps the weather out. Framing and exterior finishes together are the single biggest chunk of the whole build, close to 30%. Framing alone on that average house runs around $70,000. When you drive past a wood-framed house going up in a new subdivision over the course of a week, that's this stage, and it's the moment your house stops being a drawing and becomes a shape you can walk through. Then you hit the expensive middle, the part nobody warns you about. The mechanicals. This is the plumbing rough-in. The electrical wiring an electrician runs through the open studs, and the HVAC system and ductwork going into the walls before anything gets closed up. These rough-ins are close to a fifth of your entire construction cost, more than $80,000 on that average house. And here's why they blindside people. You can't see a single dollar of it when it's finished. You spend more than 80 grand, and then a drywall crew covers every inch of it. It feels like paying for nothing. But this is the nervous system and the veins of the place you'll live in for the next 20 or 30 years. and it is the last place on earth you want the cheapest bid. There's a simple rule that'll serve you the whole way through. Spend where it's hidden and where it's hard to change later. The wiring, the pipes, the insulation, all the things buried inside a finished wall, that's where you buy quality. Because ripping it out in 10 years costs 10 times what doing it right today does. The stuff you can see in swap, a light fixture, a coat of paint, you can always upgrade later, once the budget breathes. And then the finishes. The part you can see and touch, and the part that quietly runs up the biggest bill of all. Kitchen cabinets, flooring, countertops, paint, lighting, appliances, the fixtures in the bathrooms. Watch a crew setting cabinets into a brand new kitchen. Interior finishes are the largest single slice of the whole thing, right around 24%. And this is the stage where being your own builder pays you the most, because every one of these choices is yours. The difference between quartz and laminate, between custom cabinets and good stock cabinets, between hardwood in every room and hardwood where it actually counts, is tens of thousands of dollars. Each of those is a dial. A contractor turns the dial that protects their margin. You get to turn the dial that fits your life. Spend where your hands and your eyes land every single day. The kitchen counter, the shower, the floor under your feet. Go simple everywhere they don't. That's exactly how a builder spends when it's his own money on the line. Add it up, and you've just walked the entire house, from the dirt to the doorknobs. 5 stages, 1 budget, every dollar with a name on it. Do that once, and the total on the page stops being scary and starts being a plan. Now, I promised you I'd tell you where this gets expensive, because the builder who's honest about the hard parts is the only one worth listening to. So let me show you where budgets actually blow up. And it's almost never the framing or the foundation. It's 2 little words hiding inside a lot of contracts: allowances and estimates. An allowance is when the contract says something like, "We've budgeted $5,000 for your cabinet hardware and light fixtures." Sounds reasonable? Then you walk into a lighting showroom. You fall for something on the wall, and suddenly that $5,000 is $8,000. And the difference is a change order, and change orders always cost more than if you just decided up front. That 200 a foot number that quietly becomes $350, this is how it happens. Not one big dramatic surprise, 100 small open-ended decisions that all drift in the same upward direction. The fix is old and boring, and it works. Decide as much as you can before you ever break ground. Pick your finishes, price them for real, and turn every fuzzy allowance into a hard number written on the page. Then build a cushion on purpose. On a build with real unknowns, a smart owner-builder carries a contingency of somewhere between 5 and 15%, sitting in the account untouched, waiting for the things nobody can see coming. That cushion isn't a sign you did something wrong. Anybody who's ever built before carries one, because they've been surprised before and they refuse to lie to themselves about the numbers. All right, so you've got a real number now, and maybe it's still bigger than what's sitting in the bank today. That's normal, and it doesn't stop you. It just means you build the way people have always built when money came in seasons instead of one lump sum. You phase it. Phasing means you don't have to do it all at once. You can put in the driveway, the well, and the septic one year. Pour the foundation and get the shell dried in the next, and finish the inside as the budget allows. A house that's weather tight and locked up will wait patiently for you. And every dollar you spend is a dollar of real, standing progress you can walk out and put your hand on, instead of a payment vanishing into somebody else's account. Plenty of people dry a house in one fall, live in a camper or a finished basement through the winter, and walk into their finished kitchen the following spring, owing far less than a mortgage would have cost them for the same square footage. It's slower. It's also how you get to the finish line without a bank owning most of your life. And then there's sweat equity, which is just a plain word for the work you're willing to do with your own 2 hands. You are not going to pour your own foundation or set your own trusses, and honestly, you shouldn't want to. But the demolition, the painting, the flooring, the trim, the landscaping, the cleanup between trades, a fit person in their 50s or 60s can absolutely knock out a good share of that. Every hour you put in is an hour you're not paying for at a marked up rate. And here's the part that surprises people about being your own builder, so let me pull the fear right out of it. Being the general contractor doesn't require you to know how to do every trade. What it requires is that you line up the trades, check their work, hold the schedule, and sign the checks. You're the manager, not the laborer. If you've ever run a project, a department, a household, or a small business, you already own the exact skill this job asks for. The trades bring the hands. You bring the plan and the standard. That is the whole job. Now, before I hand you the tools to find your own number, you need to know the single biggest thing that moves it. Not your finishes, not even your builder. Where you live? The spread across this country is bigger than most people ever imagine. Look at the government's survey of construction, and you'll see custom homes built on the owner's land down in the East, South, Central states. Think Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, coming in around $129 a foot. Then look up in New England, where half the custom homes ran north of $190 a foot, and the for-sale homes crossed $280. Same country, same year, more than double the cost per foot depending on which side of it you happen to be standing on. The Pacific Coast and the Mountain West sit up high too, while much of the South and the Midwest stays a good deal friendlier. This matters for you in two directions. If you're in a high-cost region, it's a hard argument for right-sizing and for doing more of the managing yourself, because a markup on a big number is a big number. And if you've got any flexibility about where you build, or you already live in one of the more affordable corners of the map, you may be a lot closer to this than you think. The national average is just a headline. Your region is the actual story. If this is the kind of straight talk you've been looking for, go ahead and hit subscribe. I put out one of these every week. All numbers and no hype. Now let's find your number. That national figure is a starting point, not your answer. Your number depends on your town, your lot, your trades, and what you choose to put inside those walls. So here are the 3 honest ways to pin it down. And you'll want all 3 because each one checks the other 2. The first way is the professional cost databases. This is the National Association of Home Builders survey I've been quoting, plus estimating tools like RS-Means, Marshall, and Swift, and the Craftsman National Estimator sitting on a desk. These are the closest thing to a straight answer that exists. They give you real dollar figures for real stages of construction, adjusted for where you live. The catch is, they take some effort to use well, and some of them cost money. But even the free national figures hand you a defensible anchor, and that alone puts you ahead of nearly everyone who walks into this blind. The second way is a rule of thumb you can run at your own kitchen table tonight with a calculator and a legal pad. And it's my favorite because it turns your local market against itself. Pull up new home sale prices near you, then strip out everything that isn't the house. Subtract the developed lot because the land and the site work that made it buildable is its own separate cost. Then subtract the builder's markup, and I'll show you how to estimate that in just a minute. What's left is roughly the cost of construction. Divide that by the home's square footage, and you've got a real-world cost per foot, backed into straight from prices in your own zip code. It won't be perfect, but it's yours, and it's grounded in what's actually selling down the road from you. Let me make that concrete. Say a new 1,600 square foot house down the street sold for $320,000. Knock off, say, $60,000 for the developed lot it sits on. That leaves $260,000. Now pull the builder's markup back out, roughly 30%, and you land right around $200,000 in actual construction cost. Divide that by 1,600 square feet, and there's your local number, about $125 a foot, backed straight out of a real sale in your own town. Do that with 3 or 4 recent sales, and you'll watch a range form. The middle of that range is a number you can plan around. The third way is the gold standard, and it's the one the pros trust above all the rest. You bid it out. You take your plan, even a rough one, to 2 or 3 subcontractors and suppliers in each trade, and you ask them what they charge to do the work. Picture a stack of bid sheets on a clipboard at the job site. Real bids from real trades in your actual market beat every survey and every database on earth, because they aren't an average of the whole country. They're a price for your house, on your lot, from the people who'd actually swing the hammer. This is the step that turns an estimate into a plan. Use all 3, and they triangulate on the truth. The database gives you the national anchor. The rule of thumb grounds it in your local prices. The bids give you the real, specific number for your build. When all 3 land in the same neighborhood, you can trust it. And when they don't, that gap is telling you something you badly needed to know before you broke ground. Not after. Now let me pay off the thing I told you to hold on to. The split between what a house costs and what a builder charges. Go back to that survey for a second. When they break down the price of a brand new home, construction is only about 64% of what you actually pay for it. Roughly 2/3. The other third is the finished lot, the financing, the overhead, the marketing, the sales commission, and the builder's profit. And that profit piece is what we need to talk about plainly with the calculator on the table. A home builder running a healthy operation might work on something like a 23% gross margin. That sounds modest until you flip it around and look at it the way it actually lands on you, as a markup on cost. A 23% margin works out to roughly a 30% markup on top of what the house cost to build. So picture a home that costs $400,000 to actually construct. A builder delivering that same house adds around $120,000 on top of the cost. And you pay every dollar of it. That $120,000 is the entire difference between the cost and the price. And when you are your own builder, that spread stays right in your pocket. I want to be careful here, because I'm not out to make the contractor the villain. A good builder earns that money. They carry the risk, they front the cash, they eat the mistakes, they ride herd on 20 trades, so you never have to. And plenty of people are completely right to hand it all off and never think about it again. The thing working against you was never the builder. It was the unknown, and the quiet assumption that the markup was never yours to keep. Because here's how we ended up here, and there's no conspiracy in it. It's just a slow drift over a couple of generations. There was a time, not that long ago, when a regular American building their own home was ordinary. A farmer, a machinist, a school teacher would put up their own house with help from family and a few tradesmen, and nobody thought it was remarkable. Then, little by little, we handed that whole job over, and somewhere in the handoff we were told, gently and constantly, that we couldn't do it ourselves. So we believed it. We forgot that the spread between what a house costs and what it sells for was always sitting right there, and that it always belonged to whoever was willing to manage the build. And that spread isn't only savings. This is the part I really want you to hear. The day your house is finished, an appraiser walks through, and it's worth what a finished house sells for. But you only spent what it costs to build. That gap, that $120,000 in our example, doesn't evaporate. It becomes equity. Instant equity, the moment you turn the key in the front door. It's the foothold that lets a person your age own the thing outright, instead of borrowing against it for the rest of your life. Think about what that actually buys you. Room to breathe. Money that isn't going to a mortgage company every month is money for your grandkids, for travel, for the years you've been working toward. A paid-off, right-sized home in your 60s changes the entire shape of a retirement And it starts with refusing to pay a markup you now understand cold. Being your own builder is how you stop renting your own home from a bank. So let me ask you something, and I actually want your answer down in the comments because I read them, and because what you say tells me exactly what to make next. What's really stopping you from breaking ground? Be honest about it. Is it the land, not knowing how to find a lot, or how to afford one? Is it the money, not knowing how you'd finance a build at this stage of life? Or is it none of that, and the real thing is just not knowing what the very first step even is? Tell me which one. One word will do: land, money, or the first step, because whichever one you pick, that's the next video. If enough of you say the land, I'll walk you through how to find and buy a lot you can actually build on, and what raw land really costs against a developed one. If it's the money, I'll show you the kind of construction loan that needs almost nothing down for someone with equity and a plan, because that one genuinely surprises people. And if it's the first step, we'll start at step one, and I won't skip a thing. Here's what I want you to carry out of this. It is not too late. That's not a slogan. It's arithmetic. You were never priced out because prices went up. You were priced out of the markup, and the markup was never the house. The house is a set of knowable numbers and a short list of manageable steps, and you have managed harder things than this in your life. You raised people, you held down jobs through recessions, you've solved problems that never came with an instruction sheet. A house comes with far more of an instruction sheet than any of that ever did. So take the first move, and the first move costs you nothing at all. It's just knowing what it really costs to build. And now you do. It's not too late. The numbers are on your side, and I'll see you in the next one.